Hi, this is Gretchen Pontius. I am going to discuss the legal aspects of teacher evaluations for Module 8 in EDL 851. The first article I read, and I'm going to summarize, is Teacher Evaluation Heads to the Courts. This article discussed new methods of evaluations and how those have unintentionally led to court cases and litigations. The first kind of issue or hot topic is how the system was created or placed. New Mexico and Louisiana had cases involving this. In New Mexico, they were tied to the wrong students or they had incomplete data. Also, the district is supposed to have control over their evaluations, and the new laws were mandating what had to happen. So it was taking that control away from the district. In Louisiana, this one was the most complex, but they were tying evaluations to multiple things, and it's only supposed to be tied to one topic in Louisiana. So, for example, they were trying to tie it to their evaluation and then tenure and pay scale, and it can only be tied to one thing. That leads us to Tennessee and Florida. They talked about tying to a grading component. In Tennessee, teachers were missing bonuses because they were only using a fraction of the students to calculate the bonus or the growth, or it was calculated wrong, and then those non-tested subjects were missing out on those bonuses. Florida then, they had a school-wide growth formula, but if you didn't teach certain students, your growth formula was affected even though you didn't teach those students. Also, they're not supposed to be able to bargain for wages. Law says that they cannot do that. But with this, when they bargain and the merit pay, the law doesn't allow for that. Another issue was it was being tied to a grading component. So for Texas, what happened is that what is student growth? It was very vague. Also, ELL teachers were at a disadvantage, and other teachers that taught lower functioning or lower skilled students, because what is their growth? That was very vague. New York talked about baseline fairness. It didn't account for just the variations in fairness. What should be fair for one person to another person? Equitable, not always equal. Another issue was tenure. In Nevada, they talked about teachers having an ineffective evaluation should have a due process hearing. They shouldn't be able to be dismissed without that hearing. So kind of moving forward from that, it just talked about how this will kind of help shape. So all of the results of these court cases, which a lot of them are still undecided, they're still in the courts. Some of them have ruled in favor of the teacher or the district, and then others have been in favor of the state. But all of these results will kind of help shape evaluations moving forward. The next one, teacher evaluation and issue overview. Many evaluation systems are being revamped. A lot of that is due to political pressure to kind of improve teaching in general. So 4 factors would be the research on teacher quality, interest in boosting teacher effectiveness, reworking state laws on evaluations, and pressure to dismiss low-performing teachers. Even with these 4 factors and revamping, a lot of teachers are still performing at the same high levels, so that kind of leads to, is the evaluation process better, or is better feedback leading to better teaching? Also with this, it's such an issue because teacher growth versus removal, they want to help teachers grow versus just removing them. Grants to states that join the evaluation reform is another reason this has become a hot topic, trying to a federally mandated grant to a state, giving them money if they're joining in on this evaluation reform. Also with that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation put money into helping evolve evaluations. And then just the state and local priority, it's different state to state and even district to district. It's not mandated by the state or the federal government. How do they work? So again, evaluations differ from state to state. There's more objective models. There are value-added models, so where the teacher's contribution to the learning, and then also weighted formulas kind of to help arrive at that teacher's evaluation score or rating. Some districts were using 50-50, but they have backed off. They realized that was a little bit harsh. So the union's response to this, they promote better feedback. With that, though, they oppose the ties to tenure and pay and using standardized testing scores. Then it kind of leads back to, is it working? So high quality feedback should lead to better results, but it still needs a lot of refinement and it will remain a hot topic. The third article, Teacher Evaluation, a resource guide for National Education Association leaders and staff. Really, this one just talked about how to bargain and advocate, so support teacher assessment for growth and development, but not reward those on top and fire those on bottom. So it went through the processes that people that work through negotiations should be part of. So it just addressed the changes in that, how to enhance teachers and focus on effective teaching, they think it would help strengthen a teacher's commitment to the profession. They highlighted 6 key principles. So safe and open collaboration, multiple ratings and clear teaching standards, integrated evaluation system, validated evaluation measures. Teacher input is also essential. They have to buy into that, and it needs to be jointly created. So with the district, the Board of Education, teachers, everyone involved, administrators, so that it's a team effort. There should be multiple measures of teacher effectiveness. That kind of gives not just one thing determines a teacher's effectiveness. The value-added models, again, using those formulas to have some student work or scores, but not standardized test scores. There should be multiple measures of that within it, and selecting and adapting evaluations. And again, work with the district as you go through to put this into place. That leads us to then understanding teacher effectiveness. So what combination of traits, qualifications, and practices are responsible for the variation in teacher effectiveness? So the goal is to, again, improve teaching and learning. So a comprehensive teacher evaluation system should be in the classroom. It should also include contribution to the school and how well students learn. Also, the teacher evaluation system, it should be linked and integrated with the VAM, or validated education methods. It also needs to have credibility, it needs to be school-wide, and it needs to be meaningful. Those validated evaluation tools should be scored, training, generalizing, and then practical. Implications and interpretation are also big there, so there needs to be training within it for the tool to be validated. And you also have to gain trust and buy-in from everyone in order to make sure that it's successful to improve teaching and then learning. So again, teacher evaluations are shifting effectiveness rather than quality. So what that means is student outcomes and growth versus the qualifications of a teacher. You can be qualified, but can you teach that? They're triangulating how they do this using growth, observation, and artifacts. So all of those are going into the evaluation. This should improve teaching and learning. So in my school district, Derby Public Schools, they have a couple of different evaluations. We use Danielson's framework, and it depends on your year of teaching to which category you fall into. So the first is double formal. What that means is for your first 2 years in the district, the first semester and second semester, you're going to have a formal evaluation. With that, you're going to have a pre-conference, a scheduled observation, an unscheduled observation, and a post-conference. With the pre-conference, you're going to fill out a form, you're going to submit artifacts. The observation, the administrator comes in, observes, they give you scores, they provide direct feedback and evidence. So quotes and things that they saw and heard in the room. Then they come back in with their unscheduled observation, just a pop in, it's not as long. With that, after both of those observations have happened, they shoot you a form. On the form, with your evidence and your score, they talk about your strengths, areas for growth, recommendations, and then just additional comments. You are given a reflection form on that, and that's discussed at the post-conference. So again, that's the first 2 years of teaching. After the first 2 years, every multiple of 3, you are on a single formal. So it's the same process, but you would just have one of those per year instead of double. And again, that's multiples of 3. So year 3, year 6, year 9, year 12, and that has to take place by the end of January. If you are not on a multiple of 3, so you're past 3 years, so like year 4 and year 5, you are on informal. So your informal walkthrough, or it can be a walkthrough or it can be just an informal evaluation. So it has to be equal or greater than 3 walkthroughs. Walkthroughs are 5 minutes or less, and feedback is provided still via a walkthrough tool. So the teachers are still within the administrators are still within the classroom. It's just informal in that matter. For my school at the high school here, the evaluation schedule, we have 5 principals that do evaluations, and just at the beginning of the year they send those out based on if you have a family member. They just try to keep it very equitable in who evaluates who. With that, the recourse on teacher evaluations, you do have to sign it when you're done, but you don't have to agree with it. You have 10 days to give a written response if you feel the need. If you are non-tenured, so we have tenure in the aspect that we follow NEA's recommendations. If you have not been here long enough, you don't have to have that due process hearing. You can still contact the DNEA and ask for assistance, but unless it was discrimination, your likelihood of winning is very low. If you're in the 10-year time period, so you've reached that through your 3rd year, you do have to go through that due process hearing. The board gives you 5 days of written notice so that you can resign versus being terminated. One case that I found very interesting, it was actually against a charter school, McNaughton versus Charleston Charter School. I found this one interesting because I know a lot of teachers who have gone through the alternative certification process, and this talked about a teacher who had done that process. She was talented, had good reviews from parents and students. She was hired 2 years into her certification program. She was doing middle school art and yearbook, and she needed to do math or science the next year. Halfway through that year, though, she was fired. They told her that they needed to get a new math teacher because scores were low. They were going to use her salary in order to do that. The problem was they never told the board they needed a new math teacher. They asked for 2 new positions, but math wasn't one of them. She did win that case and got over $125,000 in the process of that. So kind of my reflection on all of this, I think it's very important that I know and understand the evaluation process. There are lots of legal issues or could be legal issues within it if you don't follow the protocol. So you need to follow all of those procedures. In an observation, you need to remain objective and you need to use multiple modes of evaluating. You can't just use one walkthrough or one encounter. There has to be a lot of evidence built into it. You need to stay up to date, or I need to stay up to date with issues, with evaluations and how they're evolving. I need to ask questions when I'm in doubt, whether it be my peers, different districts, the school board, the superintendent, and I also need to consult district attorneys when necessary. It's better to be safe than sorry. I found this to be a powerful module because it kind of helps me go through that process and, again, all the legality that can go into it. The resources or references that I used are as follows.